Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grilling Truth.
Hey, welcome to the first episode of Mike&Aarons Sports World on the Grilling Truth Radio Network, which, of course, as always, is brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new football app, interactive football app, where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans have called also. So check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. I will be the host for Mike&Aarons Sports World, so, of course, I'm Mike Goodpastor. I want to welcome in my co-host. It's the first time he's ever done this, so we're going to try to break him in easy. Aaron Zepnick, did I get the last name right?
Absolutely.
All right. How you doing tonight, Aaron?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, I'm always great. I had a steak tonight. I feel kind of bad, though, because I had a big-ass steak because it was like $15, but I got two boys here because my wife's at work, and I didn't want to spend $45 on 3 steaks, so I bought them two cheap ones and ended up like $5 each. Is that a bad thing, Aaron?
Well, my whole dinner cost $15 for my wife and my daughter and I to eat, so we're budget spenders.
Well, I am when it comes to the kids because they eat like horses anyways. They eat all day, so they don't need a big steak. But let's start off. The big story of the weekend has to be the Final Four. We will start off with the Oklahoma-Villanova matchup. What are your first thoughts on that, and what do you think the keys of the game will be?
The keys of the game, Mike, I think, are who controls the tempo. I think if Villanova can slow the game down and play their half-court offense against Oklahoma, who likes to run and gun, I think whoever controls the tempo and turns the ball over the least amount is probably going to win that game. I know they played earlier this season in Hawaii in the Maui Classic, and Oklahoma ran away with that one by 32, but I think this will be a different game. The keys, obviously, Buddy Hield is arguably the best player in the tournament. But Villanova has some young guys, and freshmen aren't freshmen anymore when you get to this level.
Yeah, and I've seen Villanova play a few times this year. I'm a Xavier fan, which, by the way, we were on our way home on the bus because I coach an indoor football team. And we're coming back from Western, and I'm watching the game, and I'm miserable enough anyways. And then on Facebook, I see this jerk in Wisconsin posting about Wisconsin winning a game and how excited he was. I wanted to smack that guy, and I think his name was Aaron, but just figured I'd bring it up.
Funny how things come on circle.
Y'all got lucky. But, yeah, I think the big matchup is Josh Hart against Buddy Hield. I mean, Josh is probably one of the best defensive guards in the country. I know they got blown out earlier in the year by Oklahoma, and I think this, though. I think it's a lot easier to slow a game down than it is to speed a game up, and I don't think anybody in the tournament scored more than 70 points. Villanova held Kansas, who is, I think, the overall number 1 seed in the tournament, to 22% from three-point range. So I think the big thing is Josh Hart against Buddy Hield. What's your prediction on the game?
I think Oklahoma wins, especially if it's a double-digit game. But the way I see Villanova sneaking it out is if Jay Wright did his homework, the big thing he's going to want to do is watch every game Oklahoma lost. What teams started to do is double Buddy Hield in the late in the shot clock and forced him to take some errant shots. If they can do that and stay within reach, I think Villanova might come out on top because of their free throw shooting ability. But I just think Oklahoma has too much talent.
Really? Because actually I think Villanova is the better team. I think they're the tougher team. I think they play in a conference where, it's more bang 'em around. I think they'll be able to slow the game down. And actually, I want to brag a little bit because I picked Villanova to win the national championship. So don't ask me who my other 3 Final Four teams were, but I got Villanova in there still. I'm going to say Villanova something like 69-67. I think it's a toss-up game. I'm going to lean towards Nova. I mean, they're a team that hasn't made it past the first weekend of the tournament, I think, in 5 or 6 years. And I just think this could be their year. So I'm going to go with Villanova. That brings us to the next game, which is a David-Goliath matchup. You got Syracuse, who's a number 10 seed. I think there's only been 4 or 5 seeds that low to ever make it to the Final Four. None of them won a national championship. They're going to play against the North Carolina Tar Heels. What are your first thoughts on this and the keys to this one?
Too much Meeks and Page, and Roy Williams is a great basketball coach. His resume speaks for itself. But I think he's too good to have his players fooled by the Cinderella mentality. Syracuse is coming in with nothing to lose. Nobody expects them to win. If Cooney and Richardson get hot, I could see Syracuse staying in it for a while, but I think North Carolina actually runs away with this one, 83-63.
Yeah, I was going to say a 20-point game also. I think it's more like 93-73, but we can disagree on that one thing, I guess, tonight. The dangerous thing about Syracuse, though, is they beat a Virginia team that's right up there with North Carolina. They had a huge comeback against Virginia. They had a big comeback against Gonzaga. It's a tough team. Jim Boeheim's been here a few times, probably about 40 altogether. I just don't see where it's a good matchup for them. I mean, it's the NCAA tournament. It's one night. You got to be better than them. It's not like a best out of 7 in the NBA. It's what makes the NCAA tournament great. So I think North Carolina blows them out also. I think North Carolina plays Virginia in the final. I know you got North Carolina against Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on the championship game?
That'll be a good one. I think that's what America even wants to see is North Carolina, Oklahoma for the entertainment value alone. I think
not my part of America. I want to see Villanova.
Well, the thing about the national championship is you can't go into that game with too high or too low. And I think Roy Williams is a darn good coach, and he'll have his players ready. I think they're destined to win this year. I had Kentucky winning it all, so I pick Kentucky every year. Though I'm a huge Wildcat fan.
Kentucky? So. Why would you pick Kentucky?
My dad was actually friends with Rick Pitino, and ever since Rick Pitino was the coach there, Jamal Mashburn and those guys, Tony Delk back in the day, Kentucky's my team. I actually have a tattoo on my right shoulder of a Kentucky Wildcat logo.
If I would have known this ahead of time, I'd have had a completely different co-host. I'm from Indiana. I hate Kentucky. I'm actually a Xavier fan. I was an Indiana fan until about 2000 when they fired Bobby Knight, which pissed me off. But I've always been a Xavier fan, like second. They became first then, but I can't stand Kentucky. Their fans are kind of annoying. I mean, a lot of their fans, believe it or not, I've heard they'll actually put tattoos on their bodies for the team.
18, young and dumb. What can I say?
Everybody tells me they're either young and dumb when they got a tattoo or they were drunk. Nobody ever fesses up to it.
Well, I liked the team when I was young, and I don't regret it. I still love the team. And, my brother was also a huge Kentucky fan. My dad was friends. Like I said, he had Rick Pitino, would send autographed pictures and stuff when we were kids. It was kind of a cool thing to like what your dad liked and to do what your dad did. And I'm sure you have some of that, that you can relate to in sports. I mean, every kid idolizes their dad. That's their hero. So. Yeah.
But, that's kind of a shot at me since I ripped on Kentucky, wasn't it? That made me feel bad for just a minute.
Let's April Fools. I got to act like I don't like you a little bit, right?
I didn't know you were acting. So I guess you pulled it off. I think Villanova wins the whole thing. I know that North Carolina is a better team. I just like the toughness Villanova shows. Maybe it's just because I've seen Villanova play more this year. I like Villanova in the upset. You got North Carolina next Friday night. We'll see who was right and who was wrong, and then we can make fun of the other one, whoever was right. Now you watch.
Yeah, we even place a little wager on this.
Betting is illegal. See, I'm close to Cincinnati, and I saw what happened to Pete Rose, and I don't want that to happen to me, so there'll be no betting.
Yeah, all right.
You're from Green Bay. You know about Paul Horning, so it didn't work out well for him either.
Exactly.
How about this? Whoever loses this bet has to shave their head.
Good one. Neither one of us have hair.
You know what? This is not on TV. We could have got away with that. One of us could have posted a picture with our head shaved, and it would have looked like it was legit.
Yeah, anyone that knows us knows we're follically challenged.
Yeah. But what the hell? Any thoughts on the NCAA women's tournament?
Connecticut again, I think. I don't even know whether
Connecticut hadn't lost a game since James Naismith invented the game, I don't think.
Yeah, how many have they won now in a row, or 93,000 out of 93,001?
I think there's 3 or 4 straight undefeated seasons. I mean, that's the problem with women's college basketball. I mean, really, women's college basketball right now, to me, is the equivalent of men's college basketball in the 50s and 60s. The talent level hasn't reached more than a handful of schools. And if you look at it, back in the 60s, you had a team like UCLA that from 1959 or say from the early 60s to the mid-70s won 10 championships, seven championships.
I don't mean to take another shot at you, Mike, but I'm not that old.
What's that got to do with anything? You don't read books? Oh, I forgot. You're a Kentucky fan, so I guess you don't. But it's not your fault that you never learned how to read. Most Kentucky fans don't. But
yeah,
I've always
from
got an answer. I can't just take you smacking me in the head like that, my bald head, and just let it go. So
I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Titletown, the mecca of football. I'm not from Kentucky. I'm not going to get into what I hear about Kentucky people, but, you know.
It's true. It's all true because they're, like, just south of the border. I mean, nobody has more than, like, 4 teeth past the age of 25. And, yeah, a lot of brothers and sisters do marry. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to offend anybody.
That just ruined my joke. You know what you call a little virgin girl from Kentucky? I don't know either,
unique?
But she's faster than her brothers.
Yeah, I was going to say unique, but all right. Let's see. All right, let's go ahead and change topics. Let's go to the opening of the Major League Baseball season. I know you're a Braves fan. Let's start off with the American League. Who do you got as your 3 divisional winners?
I think Tampa Bay is going to be the surprise team in the American League this year. I really do. I think they have a lot of depth in their starting rotation. If Smiley can repeat what he did last year, I think, you know, Kevin Cash has done a good job with that team. I think they're going to be the winner in the AL East. You could throw a toss-up in the Central. You know, you got a lot of teams that I think, you know, everyone's going to give the Royals their best shot, but I think the Royals are really still the team to beat until they, you know, are proven otherwise. They're young. They got a lot of talent. Half of them played for the Brewers at one point. So in the West, I would have to give the nod to the Astros. I think Houston had like Cairo, the young guy who won Rookie of the Year last year.
Yeah, Dallas Keuchel, the pitcher.
Keuchel is a good pitcher. Yeah, I think they'll win that division. And then the other thing is what do you get from Boston with David Price signing? Can he live up to the contract? You know, what's Baltimore going to do now? They have some key signings. And the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees are always going to be the Yankees. And but I really think Tampa Bay is the team to beat in that division.
All right. So who do you think goes? Who are your 2 wild card teams?
Texas, maybe. Texas is another team that could win their division. And then also, I'd say Boston. I'd say Boston maybe wins that second wild card.
All right, I'm writing this down so when we do like a World Series preview show, we can go back and see if we were right or not.
What do you think,
All
Mike?
right. The American League for me, I think the surprise team will be the Seattle Mariners. I mean, nobody's talking about them as a contender. They had a disappointing 2015 season, but they're a more complete team than they were a year ago. New general manager. I think his last name is Dipoto. I'm from Indiana, so I don't pronounce things good. I can just read them. He went on a huge shopping spree, which loaded a team with depth. So to me, I think they're going to be a surprise wild card team, actually. I think they win 85, 86 games, slip in as a wild card. I think your most disappointing team will be the Tigers. AL East, I'm going to go with Boston. It's about time for them to come back and be a first-place team again. I agree with you on Kansas City and Houston. My only switch on yours would probably be I'm going to take Toronto against Seattle in the wild card.
Okay, Toronto's a team I kind of forgot about. They're one of those teams that you can forget about because they don't have a lot of big names. But, they won 93 games last year.
Yeah,
so
they're a good team.
That's a good call.
All right, let's go to the National League where both our favorite teams exist. I think that's about all they do right now, though, because I'm a Reds fan. You're a Braves fan. National League East, who do you see coming out there? You think the Mets will get it again, or you think Washington will catch up to them?
I think the Nats have it this year. I just think there's too much. And the Mets, they got Harvey, but who else? I really don't think that they they have the.
I disagree. I mean, the Mets are loaded with pitching. You got Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard, and Steven Matz. I think the question with the Mets, I picked the Mets to win the division, but my problem with the Mets is their defense may be the worst in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, defense wins championships. I look, deGrom and those guys, they're all right, but I don't think they're going to be as deep as the Cubs or the Cardinals pitching at all. And in fact, I would think that depending on what Strasburg does and who else does Washington have out there, I'm slipping my mind now. You know the whole Mets staff. Do you know the whole Nats staff?
Oh no, not at all. I'm not going to help you out. You buried yourself here, buddy.
Okay, so the Mets over the Nats in the East, you got me there. I'd love to see the Braves end, but they just, with Freddie Freeman's all they got, and losing Hayward to the Cubs is a huge loss. And I couldn't name their pitching staff, and they're my favorite team. So,
there you go.
Like you said, that's all they do is exist.
All right, the National League Central, I'll just go ahead and say right now the Reds will be last. I think the Cubs...
the Brewers might lose 100 games this year. I mean, they've
so
done a lot in the offseason, but it's all
young. This is
young.
the question. Has there ever been a division that had two teams that in the same year lost 100 games or more?
That's a good question. I don't know, but it would be the second time in franchise history for the Brewers. I know that.
I think it'll be the second time for the Reds, too. 1982, they lost 102 after having the best record in baseball in 1981.
Wow.
So do we agree on the Cubs, or do you think the Cardinals or Pirates could spoil it for them?
It's a two-horse race. I think Pittsburgh will be third. I think they're the kissing cousin to the Cubs and the Cardinals. It's so that they should change their name to the Kentucky Pirates, I guess. But
now, see, I win this whole night now because you're a huge Kentucky fan, but now you've done nothing but make fun of Kentucky.
Yeah, well, the state, not the basketball team. But for the record, that's the only thing in Kentucky I'm a fan of.
Well, they import them. They bring them from outside, and they're only there for a year, and then they get out after they get their big contract. And I'm talking big contract. I'm talking about the year at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So, is it Cubs or Cardinals and NL Central?
I would say just because of the firepower on offense, the Cubs. Bryant, Hayward, and Rizzo, I mean, that's a 3-4-5 punch I don't think anyone can match in baseball.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Cubs win that division by double digits. I think the Cardinals are going to be a little bit down with no Adam Wainwright.
And that's another thing. That's a big loss. I had written down here that Cubs over the Cardinals in the NLCS, so I'm going to stick with that. I do think that Arrieta is going to have less eye-dropping stats than he had last year, but I still think he'll be good enough to where the Cubs win it, like you said, by double digits.
All right, that brings us to the NL West, which I think you got three contenders there. I'd throw the Diamondbacks in with the Dodgers and the Giants. What are your thoughts on it?
Same here, but if history serves us right, it's an even year. You might as well put the Giants in as a division winner right away. It seems like every even year they seem to sneak in there.
And then they win the World Series.
Yeah. Well, I didn't pick that, so I hope that's not how it goes. But the Diamondbacks, Paul Goldschmidt, probably one of the best sluggers in the game. I think they win the West, actually. The Dodgers, I think, are down. I think it's a two-horse race there between the Diamondbacks and the Giants, and Diamondbacks probably go 91 and, 91 and 71? I think they win at about 20.
That would be 162. So you can't read, but you can count.
Yeah. Quick math in the head. I think Bryce Harper also wins a Triple Crown this year. I don't know the last time a national or a guy in that franchise has won a Triple Crown, if ever. But I think Bryce Harper does it this year.
All right. I'm going to go with the Dodgers in the West, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Diamondbacks get them. Wouldn't surprise me if the Giants get them, because actually my wild cards are the Nationals and the Giants. I think the Pirates and Cardinals will vie for a wild card spot, but if neither one of them win the NL Central, I don't think they're going to get in. I think the National League is a little bit deeper than what it has been when you throw in the Diamondbacks. And then you always get a surprise team anyways. But, and like you said, it's an even year, though. And if the Giants get in as the wild card, you never know. They could win the World Series. What's your World Series prediction? Who plays in it and who wins it?
I'm going Cubs-Royals, and just because of the fact that I like the youth and the fact that they're the old Brewers, basically, with Ned Yost being the manager over there, I think the Royals win the World Series over the Cubs.
All right, I'm going to go with the Cubs and the Astros, which I do not like because, to me, that's more of a National League Championship Series, but they moved Houston. But my old ass can't get used to it, but maybe they'll get lucky like we did with the Rams, because I still call them the L.A. Rams, and see, I kept calling it, and it came back into fashion. So they're the L.A. Rams again. Now I'll start calling them St. Louis probably. But I think it's Houston against the Cubs. I'm going to pick the upset and pick Houston to win it all just because they're the Cubs and they haven't won it since 1908, and something seems to always happen. So that's my prediction. I wrote them all down. We'll see who's right and who's wrong at the end of the season.
Awesome.
That brings us to our final topic tonight, which is the NFL free agency. What team do you think's been the big winner so far?
I got a couple of them. I think the Raiders have added Bruce Irvin and Kalichi Osemele, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, they're a team that in that division, you know, they could contend with just the four major guys that I think they've added. Chris Ivory at running back, the Tashawn Gibson, Malik Jackson from Denver. I think Kelvin Beachum will help their offensive line. I think they'll really contend for that division this year with well, believe it or not, Houston.
They got Prince and Mukamura, too.
Yeah, so not a big Giants fan. I think I think the Giants, you know, got a huge upgrade in their secondary, getting Janoris Jenkins. You know, they also added that Olivier Vernon and Damon Harrison. I think that'll help the Giants, too. I think they're another winner. I don't think as big as the teams that needed it, like Oakland and Jacksonville. But free agency doesn't always mean you go to the playoffs. Ask Washington.
Yeah, well, ask most teams to do it that way. It usually doesn't work out. The Jets have tried it before.
Yeah, and that's one thing. People knock Ted Thompson around here about not going and making big splashes, but, I mean, the Packers historically have never been huge free agent splashers. I mean, Ron Wolf hit Reggie White. Other than that, can you name one guy that was, you know, a Hall of Fame even mentioned player that anybody signed from Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, the teams that are consistently in the playoffs, the Patriots will sign people. They're one of the few teams, though. But if you look, the Bengals, 5 years in a row in the playoffs, they hardly ever sign anybody. They did sign Carlos Dansby and Brandon LaFell. I mean, Dansby, I think, is a pretty good signing, a little bit older. But you look at teams like the Bengals, Steelers, they never go after free agents. And it seems like every year they're in the thick of everything. And it seems like most of the teams that go after guys, you know, don't get what they bargained for. I think the Houston Texans, I'm not a big fan of Brock Osweiler, but he's a hell of a lot better than anything else they had there at quarterback. But I think the Miami Dolphins are really going to regret letting Lamar Miller get away.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's only like 24 years old, too.
Yeah, the other thing, like you said, with the Texans, that's a huge get for them with Brock Osweiler. I don't even know how many quarterbacks they've had in the last 5 years, but they needed some stability at the quarterback position. I think they found that. And, you know, the biggest losers for me, Mike, were the Rams, losing Janoris Jenkins from their secondary, moving to L.A., and then losing Jared Cook as well. I think that's a pretty big loss. And Denver's lost a lot of players, but it seems like they had some depth and, you know, won the Super Bowl for a reason. So.
Yeah, but the one thing you don't win a Super Bowl without at least a good quarterback. Of course, they kind of did this year with Osweiler and Manning because neither one of them I don't even think were very good. But things happen. They got to play another team with not a very good quarterback. But that's a different story for a different show. My biggest loser, I think, are the Dolphins and the Browns, believe it or not. I mean, the Browns signed RG3, which I think the situation they're in, I don't think that's a bad reach. I mean, Hugh Jackson's very good with quarterbacks. I mean, Andy Dalton became significantly better when Hugh Jackson got there. But you look at it, you lose your center, Alex Mack. You lose one of your best receivers, Travis Benjamin, Tayshaun Gibson, Schwartz, Carlos Dansby just signed with the Bengals. So, I mean, a team that wasn't very deep but had a pretty decent defense has lost basically 3 or 4 starters off that defense. A team with hardly any wide receivers that are notable at all lose maybe their best receiver from last year in Travis Benjamin, or a very good receiver. Then you got the Dolphins, which I don't think from the time they hired Regis Philbin to be their head coach that they've had a clue what they were doing. And I know it's Joe. I was making a little joke there. But, I mean, you lose Olivier Vernon. You lose Lamar Miller. I mean, they lose 2 or 3 of their best players. I think the one signing, or I think another team that did really well was the Patriots. I mean, they always take a shot on guys that everybody thinks might be hurt all the time or might be done, and then the guys come out and play 3 years and take them to a Super Bowl. But you got a guy like Chris Long, who's a pass-rushing defensive end, which they need. You get Chris Hogan, which is a solid wide receiver that they can put out there. They've signed some good players. I think the Patriots have to be the favorite right now in the AFC before you have a draft or anything. And then an underrated signing to me, which I haven't heard many people talk about, was Alfred Morris going to the Dallas Cowboys. I think Alfred Morris going to the Cowboys is a big signing. He's a very good running back. He's better than what they had last year. And I think really he might be a better running back than DeMarco Murray. I think Murray is hard to tell because the Eagles used him in a way that I don't think was conducive to the way his running style is. But I don't know. What's your take on Alfred Morris to the Cowboys?
Well, those interdivision free agent signings are always interesting. You know, Alfred Morris he's one of the most serviceable backs. I've had him a couple of times in fantasy football, and you know he's always done well. But the problem with Washington is they always ran young inside the 5, so he didn't get the goal line touches. He didn't get the touchdowns. But you look at his yards, he was like a Rudy Johnson, where you just look and he's always doing well. I think Rudy Johnson had like 8 seasons in a row of 1,000 yards, and nobody talked about him. Alfred Morris can catch the ball better than people give him credit for out of the backfield. I think Dallas will use him well, and absolutely, they thought McFadden oh, my mind is going blank tonight. I'm still on the Kentucky jokes.
Hey, most Kentucky fans' minds are blank. Don't worry about it, Aaron.
Joseph Randall, I don't think he was what Dallas thought that he would turn out to be last year, and they kind of used a 1-2 punch, but I think Morris gives them that featured back that they desperately needed.
Yeah, I think Randall's not a featured back. McFadden gets hurt a lot. I don't think that was going to work out for him good anyway. So that basically completes our first show. What do you think, Aaron?
I think it went well. I need to practice on not forgetting names and being a little bit more forthcoming with the laid out predictions. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but no excuses. I'll be better next time.
Oh, you were fine. Any final words for the listeners?
Thanks a lot for everyone for tuning in and hearing us out, and I'm honored to be doing this with you, Mike, and I think it's going to be a great thing going forward.
All right. I want to remind all of our listeners, go to the Grueling Truth Facebook page, give it a like. Go check out thegruelingtruth.net, all the articles, all the shows we've done. Earlier tonight, we did an interview with Dana Stubblefield, which will be up here in the next few minutes. Next week, we got our first NFL draft show with Mike Cannon on Tuesday night. Also Tuesday, I'll be interviewing former Washington Redskin great Don Bass. He's the guy that intercepted Garo Yepremian, scored Washington's only Super Bowl 7 touchdown. Wednesday night, we'll have Mike Stenzerud, who was a former Houston Oilers defensive lineman during the Love You Blue era, played in the NFL for 10 or 11 years. And then next Friday night, we'll have our first Boxing Weekly show with myself and my co-host, Jeremiah Preaser. He is a writer, or used to be a writer for Ringside Report. Make sure you check that out. We'll preview the Bradley Pacquiao pay-per-view fight coming up. We will have a special guest, a former champion of the world. We'll just leave it like that. You guys will have to check the webpage to be able to find out who that is. That'll be announced by Tuesday. So for Aaron Zepnick, this is Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.